Wake Island is a coral atoll located in the western Pacific Ocean in the northeastern area of the Micronesia subregion, 2,416 kilometers east of Guam, 3,698 kilometers west of Honolulu and 3,205 kilometers southeast of Tokyo. The island is an unorganized, unincorporated territory of the United States that is also claimed by the Marshall Islands. Wake Island is one of the most isolated islands in the world, and the nearest inhabited island is Utirique Atoll in the Marshall Islands, 952 kilometers to the southeast. Wake Island is administered by the United States Air Force, under agreement with the Department of the Interior. The center of activity on the atoll is at Wake Island Airfield, which is primarily used as a mid-Pacific refueling stop for military aircraft and as an emergency landing area. The 9,800-foot runway is the longest strategic runway in the Pacific Islands. Located south of the runway is the Wake Island Launch Center, a Reagan Test Site missile launch facility operated by the United States Army Space and Missile Defense Command and the Missile Defense Agency. The base operations support contractor at Wake is Chugach Alaska Corporation. There are about 94 people living on Wake Island and access to the island is restricted. On December 11, 1941, Wake Island was the site of Japan's first military setback against American forces during World War II, when Marines, Navy and some civilian personnel on the island repelled an attempted Japanese invasion, sinking 2 destroyers and a transport. The island subsequently fell to Japanese forces 12 days later after a successful second invasion attempt on December 23, 1941, this time with extensive support from Japanese carrier-based aircraft returning from the attack on Pearl Harbor. Wake Island remained occupied by Japanese forces until the end of the war. The garrison surrendered the island back to United States forces on September 4, 1945. On January 5, 2009, President George W. Bush included the submerged and emergent lands at the atoll as a unit of the Pacific Remote Islands Marine National Monument. For statistical purposes, Wake Island is grouped as one of the United States minor outlying islands by the International Organization for Standardization. Etymology: Wake Island derives its name from British sea captain Samuel Wake, who rediscovered the atoll in 1796 while in command of the Prince William Henry. The name is sometimes attributed to Captain William Wake, who also is reported to have discovered the atoll from the Prince William Henry in 1792. Geography: Wake is located to the west of the international date line and sits in the Wake Island time zone, 1 day ahead of the 50 U.S. states, 2/3 of the way between Honolulu, 2,300 statute miles to the east, and Guam, 1,510 statute miles to the west. The closest land is the uninhabited Bokak Atoll, 348 miles to the southeast. Although Wake is officially called an island in the singular form, it is actually an atoll comprising 3 islands and a reef surrounding a central lagoon. Climate: Wake Island lies in the tropical zone, but it is subject to periodic temperate storms during the winter. Sea surface temperatures are warm all year long, reaching above 80 degrees Fahrenheit in summer and autumn. Typhoons occasionally pass over the island. Typhoons on September 16, 1967, at 10:40 p.m. local time, the eye of Super Typhoon Sarah passed over the island. Sustained winds in the eye wall were 130 knots from the north before the eye, and from the south afterward. All non-reinforced structures were demolished. There were no serious injuries, and the majority of the civilian population was evacuated after the storm. On August 28, 2006, the United States Air Force evacuated all 188 residents and suspended all operations as Category 5 Super Typhoon IOKE headed toward Wake. By August 31, the southwestern eye wall of the storm passed over the island, with winds well over 185 miles per hour, driving a 20-foot storm surge and waves directly into the lagoon, inflicting major damage. A U.S. Air Force assessment and repair team returned to the island in September 2006 and restored limited function to the airfield and facilities, leading, ultimately, to a full return to normal operations. Prehistory. Enonkio indigenous Marshallese oral tradition suggests that before European exploration, nearby Marshall Islanders traveled to what is now Wake Island, which the travelers called Enonkio after a small orange shrub flower said to have been found on the atoll. In the ancient Marshallese religion, rituals surrounding the tattooing of tribal chiefs, called Irilaplap, were done using fresh human bones, which required a human sacrifice. A man could save himself from being sacrificed if he obtained a wing bone from a very large seabird said to have existed on Enonkio. Small groups would brave traveling to the atoll in hopes of obtaining this bone, saving the life of the potential human sacrifice. No archaeological evidence has been found to suggest that there was ever a permanent or temporary settlement by Marshall Islanders on Wake Island.